Welcome back to another episode of 40 Facts About the 40K Universe. I am your host, Gershwan, and you are watching One Mind Syndicate. Today we continue talking about the Dark Eldar as we answer the question of who the Dark Eldar worship. Do they worship Slaanesh? Do they worship other Chaos Gods? The reality is that they worship these beings called the Dark Muses, and also the God of War, the Eldar God of War. But who the Dark Muses are is very interesting, and we're going to get into that in this video. So if you're new to the channel, subscribe. We post Warhammer 40K content every single day. And if you have any other questions, just comment down below. We'll create a video for you. But with that said, let's get into 40 facts on the Dark Muses. The Dark Eldar, or mostly referred to as the Drukhari in the Eldar lexicon, are the remnants of the hedonistic and cruel Eldar faction that caused the birth of Slaanesh. Before the fall of the Eldar, these individuals created sects called pleasure cults, dedicated to achieving the highest levels of hedonistic sensation. So outlandish were their practices that eventually they devolved into violence against each other, and even the ritual sacrifice of their own kind. During this time, many of the Eldar that participated in these pleasure cults had already cast aside the many Eldar gods and goddesses that made up their ancient pantheon. While many of them could still recognize and name the ancient gods, few saw them as important. It was the many technological advancements and peak supremacy of the Eldar Empire that fueled an overconfident population. They had no need to concern themselves with matters such as daily survival, manual labor, or warding off of external threats. Eventually filled with arrogance, the ancient Eldar saw no point on worshipping the many gods that previous generations of Eldar had venerated. Within the warp, the psychic manifestations of the Eldar deities grew weaker, as fewer Eldar prayed to them, and the abundance of pleasure cults continued to grow, manifesting in the warp until finally the Prince of Pleasure, Slaanesh, was born. In one horrific moment, the core worlds of the Eldar Empire were consumed, and the Eldar race was reduced to a mere fraction of their former glory. At that same moment, along with trillions of Eldar souls, Slaanesh devoured all but a few Eldar gods. Only 3 Eldar gods were able to escape destruction: the god of war Cain, the goddess of fertility Isha, and the laughing god Segra. While many Eldar factions also survived, it was only the Dark Eldar who interpreted the destruction of the many gods as a confirmation to the weakness of the ancient Eldari mythology, and proof that the deities never deserved the Drukhari's veneration. By no means does this suggest that the Dark Eldar worship Slaanesh as a supreme god. The Drukhari hate Slaanesh as much as the rest of the Eldar race. Nor does this mean that every single Dark Eldar ceased to believe in the Eldar mythology. Many Drukhari enjoy reminiscing of the ancient stories of their dead culture, especially when Harlequin masks perform their mesmerizing plays. Many Dark Eldar still venerate the god of war, Kala Mencha Cain, whose story of survival is told amongst the Drukhari and is still held in high regard in Kamara. The tale of how before the Prince of Pleasure could absorb Cain, Khorne, the god of war, battled Slaanesh for the power of Cain, claiming the Eldar deity as his property by right, since they represented the same metaphysical force. During the struggle between the Chaos Gods, Cain was driven into the material world, where his psychic core was shattered into 1,000 pieces. Each piece came to rest at the heart of the Eldar craft worlds, where it hibernated within the craft world's infinity circuit. This tale serves as inspiration to the many Dark Eldar raiders of Kamara. But aside from the god of war, the Dark Eldar also venerate the ancient and lesser powers known as the Dark Muses, who are the embodiments of selfish vice, and whose worship by the ancient pleasure cults contributed to the demise of the Eldari gods. The Dark Muses are truly powerful Drukhari from ages past, who have essentially become folkloric figures of reverence, much like the Imperium worships Imperial Saints. Worship of these beings started before the fall, sometime between the 19th and 24th millennium by the Imperial calendar, when the traditional worship of the Eldari gods began to wane, as new sects and societies dedicated to heathenistic excess began to rise in power amongst the ancient Eldari. Many of these Dark Muses epitomize a particular form of vice. For instance, the evils of arrogance are personified by the Dark Muse, Vyleth. Vyleth is particularly popular as an ideal to which many Dark Eldar archons aspire to. The most famous followers of Violet are known as the Scions of Violet, and are known as the best aerial hunters of the Dark Eldar, piloting aircrafts such as the Razor-Wing jet fighters and the Void Raven bombers. These Dark Eldar pilots will sometimes form mercenary aerial squadrons that will work for cabals, witch cults, and the homunculi of the Dark City. The emergence of cults centered around a particular Dark Muse or multiple Dark Muses is common in Dark Eldar society. For instance, there exist many mysterious sisterhoods who are desired by powerful archons to serve as courtesans in their courts. Known as Lamaeans, these female Drukhari are renowned in Kamara for being both imaginative lovers and exceptional poisoners. They descend from the cult of Limea, whose courtesan elite also worshipped the Dark Muse, Lilitu, and gained their knowledge of poisons from another Dark Muse known as Shamash, father of poisons. Such is the sisterhood's mastery that they can alter the poisons of others to enhance their effect, knowing how best to maximize a weapon's potency with a glance. Certain xenographers hold Shamash to be a mythical figure, and others a historical one. The tendency for Eldar myth to blur the line between the two has not helped what studies exist on the topic. Whether this Shamash was ever real, his influence lives on in the deadly brews of his devoted followers. This is true for most Dark Muses. The stories of their heathenistic and twisted actions have existed since before the fall, and many tales have become more legend than factual tellings. Nevertheless, the Drukhari of Kamara continue to worship these beings and enact ever stranger rituals and ceremonies in their honor. Sacrificing is a common form of worship in the Dark Eldar culture. The majority of sacrifices to the Dark Muses take the form of human or other Xeno offerings. The quality of sacrifice also may vary depending on the fortune desired by the worshippers. Sacrificing a fresh slave compared to a virgin thrall that has already been subjected to horrible torture will foster different results. The most desired sacrifice will always come in the form of Eldar ritual slaughtering. To offer Eldari blood is seen as the ultimate form of libation. Traditionalist witch cults often seek the ritual favor of the Dark Muse, Kale, the mistress of blades, with a sacrifice for good fortune before combat. Other witch cults evoke the favor of the Dark Muse, Hecate, the Red Crone, before they enter any battle. Just like the Imperium, the Dark Eldar will go to great lengths to recover artifacts or relics pertaining to these ancient beings. Much like an Imperial priest might venerate an article of armor left behind by a famous general, the Drukhari revere the weapons or torture devices of these ancient Eldari. Inest is known to be a Dark Muse, particularly revered by the Cabal of the Onyx Scar. The Cabal searches for her ashes in the Warp Rift, known as the Screaming Vortex in the Segmentum Obscurus, where the ashes are rumored to be held in a chalice on a pirate-held world of Sackgrave. It is even believed by many Drukhari that their current supreme overlord, Asdru Beovac, of the Cabal of the Black Heart, may one day join the ranks of the Dark Muses. Though given his ability to cheat death again and again, this may be an honor long in the coming. And those were 40 facts on the Dark Muses. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to share it with your friends on Facebook, Twitter, whatever social media you guys use. Especially if they play Eldar or Dark Eldar, see if they know about the Dark Muses. This is something that was new to me. Don't forget that we are currently running a subscriber appreciation giveaways. If you check out the video titled Daily Life of a Plague Marine and Horrible Realities of a Coronet Berserker, we are running 2 starter set giveaways. You can win some awesome Plague Marine stuff. You could win some awesome Coronet Berserker stuff if you are into chaos. It's actually really funny because from my experience on the Greater Wall, a lot of people believe that Dark Eldar worship chaos, and they don't. I mean, I understand where you're coming from, because when you think of Space Marines, their opposite is Chaos Space Marines. When you think of Imperial Guard, their opposite is Chaos Cultists or Demons. But it's not the same when you look at the Eldar and the Dark Eldar. The Dark Eldar hate chaos as much as like an Imperial Inquisitor would hate chaos, especially Slaanesh. They get consumed by Slaanesh just the same if they are not protected. And so they just don't worship chaos at all. the Dark Muses are just like an interesting twist to the whole lore of the Dark Eldar. It makes sense to a realistic extent. Because as I was reading the lore of the Dark Muses, it kind of, things started to click with reality. So when you have the Dark Eldar who worship these Dark Muses, who essentially are just other Dark Eldar, or they were Eldar that were part of pleasure cults, and they were like big names. They were innovators in the form of torture and pleasure. When you look at human society, like our society, right now we are in the peak of like technology, and it seems like we're kind of going away from religion. So just like the Eldar, once they were at their height of their power, they didn't really need to rely on mythology so much anymore. They kind of had control of their own thing. What they started to do is like move towards pleasure and hedonism, but at the same time just stop believing in the old gods. That's kind of where humanity is right now. I'm not saying that we're moving towards like heathenism, but we are moving more towards pleasure. Like the internet is just a big like place where you can fulfill that small little desire of pleasure. Like you can check your Instagram, you can check the new prices for the new releases of Warhammer 40K, so the Warhammer community, like they're all just like little pleasureful hits in your mind every time, and it's at the edge of your fingertips. So like we're moving towards like that pleasureful or pleasure desiring world, just like the Dark Eldar, or the Eldar who are going towards pleasure cults. And then we're also kind of pushing away from religion, at least in first world countries. I feel as a country gets more educated, they kind of like understand that Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, all that stuff is nice, and like it has its place, but it's not what it used to be to old humans. And what's happening is that instead of venerating people like Jesus, Allah, whatever, other figures from humanity's past become venerated. So you see that as like we venerate people like Galileo, especially when it comes to science. It's like Galileo. When you look at history, it's like whatever country you're from, you're venerating a famous general like George Washington or what have you. And that usually is what's happening in like any civilization. As the civilization gets better, they start worshiping people of old, not so much gods of old. Of course, we're not psychically powered. There's no warp, so we're not going to manifest a chaos god of internet porn or something. That's not going to happen. But at least I hope that's not going to happen. But either way, I found it interesting how like the same thing that's happening to the same thing that happened to the Dark Eldar and their worship of Muses is kind of happening to our culture and like our worship of historical people, historical big names in history and stuff like that. But yeah, tell me what you guys think. Don't forget about the giveaways. If you guys enjoy our videos, we have a Patreon. It's a simple $1 a month. It helps us create more videos for you guys. If you can't, no worries, just by liking, commenting, and sharing, it helps out the channel. But yeah, with that said, I'll talk to you tomorrow. This was Gershwin with One Mind Syndicate signing out.
Always used to put my freedom first in any situation.